There are people who go through life like silent shadows. They're there, present, but rarely noticed. They occupy the corner of the room at parties, listen more than they speak, observe more than they participate. To the world, they might seem absent. To themselves, they often feel exactly that way, invisible. If you're one of these people, you know this feeling well. You know the weight of walking into a room and feeling that no one really sees you. The strange experience of being surrounded by people and still feeling completely alone. The exhaustion that comes from trying to fit into conversations that don't make sense to you, in groups that speak a language that isn't yours. Maybe you grew up hearing that you should come out of your shell more, be more social, put yourself out there more. Maybe you spent years believing there was something fundamentally wrong with your way of being, that your need for silence was weakness, that your preference for solitude was a flaw, that your sensitivity was a problem to be fixed. Have you ever found yourself preferring to stay home while everyone else goes out to have fun? Have you ever questioned if there's something wrong with you for getting tired of empty conversations and superficial relationships? Have you ever felt that the world is too loud, too fast, too fake for your way of being? If these questions touched something inside you, know that you're not alone. And more importantly, know there's nothing wrong with you. There's a silent force in the world, a presence that doesn't shout, doesn't compete, doesn't show off. While others chase spotlights, some people discover something revolutionary. Being invisible isn't punishment, it's freedom. You're not weird for needing silence. You're not antisocial for avoiding crowds. You're not problematic for preferring the company of few to the approval of many. You simply discovered a deeper way to exist in this world, a way that few understand, but that brings a peace that noise can never offer. This journey isn't about hiding from the world, but about finding a more truthful way to live in it. Get ready to see your introversion not as limitation, but as liberation. Your need for solitude not as lack, but as wisdom. Your invisibility not as rejection, but as conscious choice. What you're about to read might completely transform your relationship with your own quiet nature. It's not about accepting less from life. It's about discovering that you always had access to something deeper, richer, more authentic than the superficial rush that the world calls success. The world insists that everyone should shine center stage. But there's a truth that few speak about. Not everyone was born to be there. And that's not a problem. It's a choice. Some people feel deep peace living discreetly, away from spotlights that blind more than they illuminate. Think about that person who prefers watching the party to commanding it, who chooses to listen more than speak, who finds joy in small moments without needing to announce it to the world. It's not shyness. It's not inferiority. It's another style of existence. While some exhaust themselves trying to impress, you rest in the certainty that you don't need to prove yourself. Your energy doesn't scatter in performances. It concentrates on what really matters, being true to yourself. Society might not understand this. It might insist that you should come out of your shell more, show yourself more, be more social. But what if the shell is your home? What if showing yourself in silence is your way of shining? What if your sociability is deeper precisely because it's rarer? There's nothing wrong with not wanting to be seen by everyone. There is, however, something very right about choosing who gets to really see you. This selectivity isn't a sign of fear. It's a sign of wisdom. You discovered that the attention of 1,000 people is worth less than the understanding of one. That empty applause doesn't fill the void of the soul. That there's an abysmal difference between being popular and being understood. Your invisibility protects you from the emotional waste of trying to please those who lack the capacity to value you. It preserves you for the connections that really matter. It keeps you whole for people who know how to recognize your essence. This isn't a survival strategy. It's a flourishing strategy. You're not hiding from the world. You're revealing yourself to those who deserve it. Loneliness and solitude are distant cousins. Loneliness hurts, weighs, distresses. Solitude nourishes, regenerates, creates. The difference lies in choice and the quality of silence you find with yourself. When you're alone by choice, something magical happens. Your thoughts organize without the world's interference. Your emotions settle without rush. You reconnect with parts of yourself that external noise had silenced. Think about the most nourishing moments of your life. Maybe they were those when you were alone, reading a book that touched your soul, walking aimlessly and discovering something new about yourself, or simply sitting in silence, feeling the comforting weight of not having to be anything other than you. Solitude is where creativity is born. It's where insights appear. It's where you process not just what happened, but who you're becoming. It's not absence of company. It's total presence with yourself. The world might interpret this as isolation, but you know it's regeneration. While others exhaust themselves in social rushing, you recharge in silence. It's not escape from life, it's diving into it. There's a deep intimacy in being alone with yourself that most people never experience. They're afraid of their own silence, their own reflections, their own company. You discovered that this intimacy is a treasure, that knowing yourself is the first step to knowing the world. That inner peace isn't something you seek outside. It's something you cultivate within. In moments of solitude, you're not wasting time. You're gaining clarity. You're not isolating yourself. You're concentrating. You're not running from reality. You're creating a more authentic reality. There's a communication that needs no words. You know this when you look into a dog's eyes and feel that it truly sees you, or when a cat purrs in your lap, demanding nothing but your presence. These moments teach something precious about connection. Animals don't ask you to be smarter, funnier, more interesting. They sense your essence and are content with it. To them, you're not invisible, you're complete. In this shared silence, there's an understanding that words rarely achieve. The dog that lies at your feet while you read, the cat that appears when you're sad, without anyone calling it. These are moments of pure presence, where being invisible to the world doesn't matter, because you're totally seen by those who really know how to see. This silent language is the same one you use with the right people. That conversation without words, that look that needs no explanations, that presence that comforts without saying anything. It's a way of existing that the noisy world can't understand, but that touches something deep in those who experience it. Animals teach us that presence is worth more than performance. That being seen doesn't depend on being noticed. That some of the truest connections happen in silence. They don't judge your need for quiet. They don't question your preference for simplicity. They don't try to convince you to be more social. They simply exist beside you, offering company that doesn't demand, doesn't charge, doesn't disturb. It's a form of love that the human world forgot. Loving without expectations, being present without agenda, accepting without conditions. This is the language you learn to speak, the language of the heart, which needs no translations and requires no audience to be true. Imagine the lightness of not needing to compete, of not having to be better than anyone, more interesting than the neighbor, more successful than the friend. This is the freedom of those who live invisible, existing without audience, without judges, without the constant pressure to impress. While the world exhausts itself in the race for likes, approval, and recognition, you discover something revolutionary. Your life isn't a show. It's your particular, intimate, true experience. It doesn't need applause to have value. Have you noticed how different it is to make decisions when no one is watching? How your choices become more honest, more yours? When you remove the need to impress, there's room for something more precious: impressing yourself. Social anxiety often springs from the feeling of always being evaluated. But what if you're not? What if most people are too busy with their own dramas to judge you? What if this freedom you feel when being invisible is actually the freedom to be yourself? Not needing to show off is a relief that few know. Not having to validate your existence through others' gaze is a rare form of emotional independence. You become free to live, not to show that you live. Free to choose based on your values, not others' expectations. Free to fail without the whole world knowing. Free to succeed without needing recognition. Free to be mediocre at some things and extraordinary at others, without having to justify these choices. This freedom is invisible to those living in the rush of external approval, but it's tangible for those who experience it. It's the difference between living your life and performing your life, between being authentic and being accepted, between having peace and having popularity. Every creation needs silence to be born. Ideas don't flourish in noise. They germinate in the quiet of a mind that can hear itself. When you live invisible, you gain access to a secret laboratory, your imagination without interference. Think about Nikola Tesla, a genius who lived much of his life away from spotlights. While the world applauded noisier inventions, he created alone, in silence, ideas that would change the future. Tesla didn't seek fame. He sought meaning. His solitude wasn't a sign of weakness, but of depth. He knew that some discoveries are only born in silence, and that some minds only flourish when they don't need to show off. Creativity doesn't need a stage. It needs space. Space to fail, to try, to discover. When you're not worried about others' opinions, your mind allows itself to dream without limits. Your ideas aren't born censored by external expectations. You might not be a famous artist, but you carry within yourself the same need to create. Maybe it's a text that only you will read, a garden that only you will contemplate, a recipe that only you will taste. It doesn't matter. What matters is that, in silence, you find ways to give life to your ideas. Creating in silence is creating in freedom. It's allowing your essence to express itself without filters, without fear, without rush. It's discovering that your invisibility isn't absence of talent. It's presence of authenticity. How many masterpieces were born in silent rooms? How many insights emerged during solitary walks? How many solutions appeared in moments of quiet? Silence isn't empty. It's gestation. It's not absence. It's potential. It's not end. It's beginning. The Kybalion, a classic book of Hermetic philosophy, teaches us that everything has two sides, and that the universe is mental. This means that the way you see your invisibility determines what it becomes in your life. Even invisibility has its polarity. There's a difference between choosing to be invisible and being invisible out of fear, between using silence as freedom and using it as prison. When you hide because you don't consider yourself worthy of being seen, you're not being invisible. You're being invisible to yourself. When you avoid the world because you've been hurt, you're not choosing solitude. You're running from pain. These are the traps that can transform a gift into limitation. The yin-yang, symbol of Eastern balance, shows that every light carries a shadow and every silence can hide noise. The shadow of invisibility is excessive isolation, total disconnection, fear of being vulnerable. When you distance yourself so much from the world that you lose contact with yourself, something needs to change. Balance lies in knowing when to choose silence and when to choose presence, when to use invisibility as strength and when to recognize it's become weakness. There's nothing wrong with protecting yourself, but there's something wrong with hiding from your own life. If you realize your invisibility was born from trauma, rejection, deep fear, it's time to look at this with care. Not to force yourself to be different, but to transform your invisibility into choice, not consequence. The difference between healthy invisibility and toxic invisibility lies in intention. One liberates you, the other imprisons you. One is born from wisdom. The other is born from wounds. One connects you with your essence. The other disconnects you from everything. Recognizing this difference is the first step to transforming your relationship with your own reserved nature. It's not about choosing between being invisible or visible. It's about choosing between being invisible from power or from fear, from wisdom or from trauma, from choice or from escape. Your mind is the brush that colors your experience. When you think, "I'm invisible because nobody wants me," you create a reality of rejection. When you think, "I'm invisible because I choose depth over superficiality," you create a reality of freedom. The difference isn't in what happens to you, but in what you do with what happens. Two people can live the same situation and have completely different experiences, simply by how they interpret what they live. If you've always felt different, misunderstood, outside the norm, you can see this as curse or blessing. You can lament not fitting in or be grateful for escaping a mold that wasn't made for you. The power is in your hands, or better, in your mind. When you change how you see yourself, you change how you live. Your invisibility can be rejection, or it can be freedom. The choice is yours. The universe is mental means you're not a victim of circumstances. You're a creator of your reality. Not through magical thinking, but through how you interpret and respond to what you live. Your invisibility can be the problem or the solution, depending on the lens you use to see it. When you understand that your mind is the filter through which you experience the world, you realize you have power over your own experience. Not power over what happens, but power over what it means. Not control over circumstances, but authority over your responses. This is true freedom, not needing the world to change for you to feel good. Not depending on external approval to feel valuable. Not waiting for others to recognize your essence to know who you are. You become independent of others' opinions because you found your own inner voice. You free yourself from the need to be understood because you understood yourself. You stop seeking external validation because you developed internal validation. When you live invisible, you don't attract crowds. You attract similar souls. People who also understand the value of silence, who also prefer depth to superficiality, who also know that some of the most important conversations happen without words. These connections are rare, but have an intensity that common relationships can't reach. It's as if you speak the same secret language, a language made of pauses, looks, and mutual understanding. Maybe you have few friends, but the ones you have truly know you. Maybe your conversations are less frequent, but more meaningful. Maybe you rarely meet, but when it happens, it's as if time hadn't passed. These people are your companions in invisibility. They don't try to change you, push you out of your comfort zone, or convince you that you should be more social. They simply exist beside you, at the same pace, on the same frequency. There's something liberating about friendships that don't demand performance. Where you can be totally yourself, without filters, without fear of judgment. Where silence is comfortable and presence is enough. These people don't need explanations to understand why you canceled the social commitment. They don't question your need to be alone. They don't interpret your quiet as rejection. They know your way of loving is different, but no less intense. That your presence is rarer, but no less valuable. That your friendship is quieter, but no less deep. With these people, you don't need to pretend to be more extroverted than you are. You don't need to apologize for your sensitivity. You don't need to explain why large groups tire you. They simply accept your nature and work with it, not against it. This is the beauty of rare connections. They don't try to transform you. They celebrate you exactly as you are. When you live on the margins, you develop a special ability, sharp perception. While others are busy being seen, you're busy seeing. And this gives you access to a world that most people miss. You perceive sadness in the eyes of those who are smiling. You notice tension in the voice of someone speaking too loudly. You feel the energy of an environment before anyone even speaks. These aren't superstitions. They're natural consequences of an observant life. It's as if you developed a sixth sense for human nuances. While others get lost in the obvious, you capture the subtle. While others hear words, you hear intentions. While others see gestures, you see emotions. This is your silent superpower. You read between the lines, perceive what wasn't said, feel what wasn't shown. It's not paranoia. It's sensitivity trained by constant observation. Maybe that's why people feel comfortable around you. They perceive, even without knowing how to explain, that you truly see them, that you see beyond the mask they show the world. Your invisibility gave you a privileged view of human nature. You see patterns others don't notice. You understand motivations others ignore. You catch contradictions others missed. This doesn't make you superior. It makes you more aware. It doesn't give you the right to judge. It gives you the responsibility to understand. It doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you different from everyone. This sharp perception is both gift and burden. You see things you'd rather not see. You perceive lies you'd rather believe. You feel pain you'd rather ignore. But you also experience beauties others miss. You catch sincerities others doubt. You find depths others don't know exist. Your invisibility didn't blind you to the world. It gave you clearer vision of it. Being invisible doesn't mean disappearing. It means being present in a way the world isn't used to recognizing. It's a presence without fanfare, without drama, without the need to occupy physical or emotional space. You know these people. Those who enter an environment and, even without saying a word, change the energy of the place. Not for what they do, but for what they are. Not for the noise they make, but for the peace they bring. There's a silent power in not needing to announce yourself, in arriving without fanfare and leaving without goodbye, in touching lives without leaving obvious traces. It's a form of influence that works from inside out, like a seed that grows without noise. This silent presence is powerful precisely because it doesn't compete with anything. It doesn't fight for attention, doesn't force its importance, doesn't shout to be noticed. It simply exists. And its existence is enough to touch those who have eyes to see. You're part of a special group, people who make little noise and say much. Your presence communicates more than 1,000 words because it comes from an authentic place, not a performative one. Don't fool yourself thinking that because you're invisible, you're irrelevant. You're relevant in a way the world is still learning to value. Your presence isn't less powerful for being silent. It's more powerful because it's genuine. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. It doesn't need to show off to be noticed. It doesn't need to compete to be chosen. Your presence speaks for itself to those with sensitivity to perceive it. There are people who leave a conversation with you feeling transformed, without knowing exactly what happened. There are environments that become more welcoming simply because you're there. There are moments that become deeper because of the quality of your presence. This isn't coincidence. It's consequence of a life lived with authenticity, away from the need to impress, focused on essence, not appearance. There's something sacred about choosing invisibility. It's a way of saying no to chaos, no to superficiality, no to the constant need for external validation. It's a choice that requires courage, because it goes against everything society teaches about success and happiness. When you choose to be invisible, you're choosing a way of life that prioritizes depth over breadth, quality over quantity, authenticity over appearance. It's a spiritual choice, even if you don't see it that way. Great sages throughout history understood this. Many withdrew from the world not out of giving up, but out of understanding. They realized that some truths can only be found in silence, away from the interference of others' opinions. You don't need to be a monk or hermit to live this. You can be invisible in the middle of crowds, present without being available, participatory without being desperate for approval. It's a subtle art that few master. Your invisibility is your shield and your freedom. It protects you from excess, from pressure, from the need to constantly explain yourself. It allows you to live at your own pace, follow your own values, create your own definition of success. It's not escape from life. It's diving into it. It's not giving up on the world. It's conscious selection. It's not fear of being seen. It's wisdom about when and by whom it's worth being seen. Your invisibility connects you with something greater than social approval. It aligns you with deeper rhythms than the world's rush. It tunes you into more lasting values than passing trends. When you consciously choose to be invisible, you're choosing a way of life that prioritizes being over seeming, essence over appearance, eternal over ephemeral. It's a radical choice in a world that confuses noise with importance, exposure with value, popularity with relevance. You chose differently, and that makes all the difference. Being invisible isn't failure. It's a different way of existing, freer, more sensitive, deeper. While the world chases spotlights, you discovered the beauty of living in your own light, without needing anyone's approval. Your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's strength. Your need for silence isn't limitation, it's choice. Your way of loving in silence, creating without showing, existing without performing, is valid and valuable. The world needs people like you. People who remind us that not everything needs to be loud to be important, that not everything needs to be seen to be real, that some of the deepest experiences happen away from spotlights. Be grateful for being invisible. Be grateful for the freedom it gives you. Be grateful for the depth it allows you. You weren't forgotten by the world. You chose a different path. And what if being invisible isn't absence, but presence on another plane? A plane where you can finally be whole without dividing yourself to fit in anyone's eyes. The world might not even notice you, but you don't need an audience to be real. True light never needed spotlights, just silence to shine.